Doctor Who. Everyone loves Doctor Who. I may be biased, after all I am English, but nonetheless it is an absolute iconic piece of TV history, airing all the way back in 1963. It's one of the longest running TV shows ever, even with that 15-year gap from 1989 to 2005. And it's still running today. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But I'm sorry, neither are we going to talk about the earlier seasons in this video, pre-cancellation. Today we're going to be talking about specifically the later seasons of Doctor Who. And yes, I understand that may upset some of you, but come on, let's not lie like this, just between you and me. Can you really tell me you've watched every episode of Doctor Who? I mean, the BBC lost the damn pilot episode, which was thought to be gone forever, but was rediscovered in 1978 in a mislabeled film can. So yes, I'm going to be talking about where my primary experience lies, which is mostly under the 9th to 12th Doctor's reign, 2005 to 2017. Let's go. Produced by the British Broadcasting Corporation, the programme depicts the adventures of a Time Lord called the Doctor, an extraterrestrial being who by all appearances looks human. I mean, he's got 2 hearts, but you know, close enough. Him and typically a companion of some sort travel around in a big small blue box named the TARDIS, meaning time and relative dimension in space. Big small because it's bigger on the inside. He or she, I said or she.
Because he or she is only ever said by men who are fully intended on just saying he, at the very last second remembered that she exists.
Okay, they like saving the universe, kicking alien ass, travelling through time, and long walks on the beach. Now, the influence of this show is unfathomable. Do you realise that when Matt Smith uttered the words "bow ties are cool" in his first appearance as the Doctor?
Putting the bow tie.
Yeah, it's cool. Bow ties are cool. Bow ties are cool.
Bow tie sales shot up by 94% in some places. 94%! With the Doctor comes his gadgets. His gadgets, let's be honest, as fantastic as they are just basic plot devices so the writers don't have to come up with some clever way around his circumstances. They're things to just unlock doors. One of them literally. Heck, even death is rendered irrelevant due to a plot device. Don't you just hate being on your deathbed? Aren't you tired of being mortal? Do you wish you were younger, stronger, better? Well, now you can be. Use revolutionary new technique, regeneration, today, because you haven't got time to worry about wrinkles, grey hairs, or the endless abyss of death. Come into stores today and wave goodbye to those pesky, annoying loved ones. Spend forever lonely as anyone you get close to, or simply just fade away. Regeneration. You'll hate it. T's and C's may apply. Okay, don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying these plot devices are bad things. Quite the opposite. This understandable laziness lets the show's stories run quicker and smoother. Questions such as how is he going to get into this top secret building, or wouldn't the door be locked, are washed away with the simple utilization of the sonic screwdriver and psychic paper. In their own way, they're genius. If the episodes of the show spend their time on boring questions such as these, then they would have very little time exploring the different worlds and stories the characters traverse. A typical episode of the show is just 45 minutes long. In this time, pretty much in every episode, the writer must introduce whole new environments, characters, and quite literally everything, even time periods. And the plot, because of these gadgets, becomes more efficient and thus entertaining. However, these devices may also be a hindrance in creating actual situations and problems the Doctor can't escape. If he is a tool for every occasion, why should I, as a viewer, worry if, say, he was locked in a prison cell? He could just screwdriver it. That sounds weird. I'm only just now realizing that. Screwdriver it. And so, the writers must find ways to debilitate our main character, which almost in every episode means that the TARDIS must be detained, captured, or, my personal favourite, when it just decides to break. This is done because in order to keep limitations for a man who owns an all-powerful machine, then you have to somehow take it out of the equation or the story loses stake. But that's just it. In today's video, I want to talk about how the show gives its stories an epic sense of stake. Absolute all or nothing stake. Ribeye, flat iron, what are we talking? No, not that type of steak, you moron. So, I guess we'll start with a simple question. How do you give your story stakes? The best and most common obvious way to do this is through the implication of high or extreme consequences determined by the result of the story we as viewers are watching on screen. Now, probably the most common and effective way of representing this is to personify your less preferable and negative consequences through what a villain or antagonist is striving to achieve. These consequences, and in turn the stakes, are however relative. In Doctor Who, for instance, the consequences are frequently the end of the world, or failing that, the end of the universe, which is not an uncommon story stimulus within science fiction genre content. But when we compare this with, say, a genre such as film rom-coms, they're pathetic in comparison. The consequence of rom-com stories is typically whether the main character will find love, and if our character through this will be happy or not. Now, does this mean that one story has less stake than the other? I don't think so at all. I am no less engaged in rom-coms than in any science fiction story. It's a genre I actually adore, and I believe this is because the consequences matter to our characters, and through this matter to the audience. It doesn't really matter as much as you would assume to the audience if the fallout of a story is massive or tiny. As long as you can show it's significant to our characters, it will be significant to the viewer. So what can we determine from this? To best create stake in our stories, we must make the consequences relatively high for our characters, so the audience is best engaged. So let's take a look at how a film or TV show would generally give off the impression that a character cares deeply for the result of an interaction, and through that take a look at how I believe Doctor Who achieves the best form of stake manifestation and thus audience engagement I have possibly ever seen. As audience members, perhaps the most efficient and shorthand way we can be introduced to a concept or character is through how other established characters react to them. Now, as well as this, it's far easier for us to perceive the weight of a situation through the look on someone's face, rather than us just straight up being told, yeah, this is bad. And that makes sense. Most experts agree that 70 to 93% of all communication is non-verbal. Then what's the point of me doing these voiceovers? I don't know. It's the old show don't tell rule. Our characters are our guides in how the audience should react accordingly to what we're being presented with on screen. Let's use the example of fear. Fear, a powerful emotion, is especially meaningful when we see a fearless character become afraid. Whoa, that was a lot of the word fear in one sentence. If we as members of the audience can see a character treat another character with fear, we can then base our emotions towards the character in question off of that. And in turn, the audience grasps that they are someone to be feared by themselves also. And I believe this is seen nowhere better than in the John Wick movies.
Aurelio speaking.
I heard you struck my son.
Yes, sir, I did.
Yeah, may I ask why?
Because he stole John Wick's car, sir, and, killed his dog.
Oh. It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Who? The f***ing nobody?
That f***ing nobody is John Wick. We call him Baba Yaga.
The boogeyman?
Well, John wasn't exactly the boogeyman. He was the one you sent to kill the f***ing boogeyman.
It's brilliant! We can clasp who the character of John Wick is simply by the mention of his name. Or technically the mention of the name Baba Yaga, but you get my idea. Oh, I pronounced that pretty well. Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga. It's a pretty fun word to say, actually. This same form of quick establishment of characters, villains, environments is extended in the very same Doctor Who. The viewer receives a sense of epicness from the story when we see how our very own Doctor is seen inside the world he inhabits.
Is this world protected? Because you're not the first lot to have come here. Oh, there have been so many. And what you've got to ask is, what happened to them? Hello. I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
Fantastic, yeah? Like, that's not just me, right? That's fantastic. But this is seen nowhere more powerfully than when we see fear in our character's face towards the villain. And my best example of the point I'm trying to communicate is seen in Season 4, Episode 12 of New Who. The Stolen Earth. As I've said, Doctor Who is a very long-running TV show. If we see what our characters have already been subjected to, and what hardships they have faced, and some of those characters, for example, Sarah Jane Smith, have already by the time this episode aired been developed massively, we can understand that she's brave. She's faced near-death situations over and over again, but every time has managed to overcome her terror. So this makes it all the more impactful when we finally see her absolutely distressed in horror. This episode and the subsequent episode, Journey's End, are absolutely masterful, like insanely so, as pieces of cinema, and perhaps most impressively as a very large on-screen crossover event between all the shows and spin-offs, years before the Arrowverse even touched similar ground. But the moment I'm talking about specifically comes rather early in the first episode, whilst the stage and that previously talked about scale is still being set. We're quickly introduced to familiar faces, and how they're reacting to a recent disaster event, when simultaneously they learn the gravitas of what's happening to them. And in this moment here, we see it all.
I'm receiving a communication from the Earthbound ships. They have a message for the human race.
Put it through.
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
No. Oh no.
What is it? Who are they? Do you know them, Jack?
Exterminate!
There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. We're dead.
He was so young.
This is one of my favourite moments in all of television. This moment, this one instance of absolute hopelessness, seen nowhere better than throughout the 10th Doctor's reign, perfectly encapsulates the sense of absolute epicness and mass of proportion that our characters are in. Again, we don't always see scale necessarily through how we would see ourselves in the circumstances on screen, although this is important so the audience may better understand how they would react in the same environment. We mostly see scale through how the characters in the world react, and in this case it was with a never before seen complete and utter sense of that hopelessness, complete powerlessness. As a viewer, we're kept in mystery until it's revealed in the final moments of who our heroes must face. Our heroes, returning some for the first time in seasons, so suddenly united, perhaps stronger than ever, can only hug their loved ones, apologise to them. We see how even the characters, the ones we've seen triumph over and over again, can recognise that the fight is over before it's even begun. How they wail at the missed sound of the villain, because they alone can recognise what terrible creatures are before them, and comfort their friends and family, the ones in blissful ignorance, because in all likelihood, no matter what they do, this is the end, and it's heartbreaking, epic, massively brilliant, heart-shattering, and stake is achieved. Now, this sense of hopelessness is a common and fantastically achieved theme throughout the show Doctor Who. It gives a strong sense of awe towards the situations, villains, characters and monsters. And this for me evidently peaked during when the 10th Doctor took the screen, and has never been achieved quite to the same extent since. Now, many factors lead to these moments of epicness. The immensely good music obviously contributing to it quite a lot. Truly for me, the best recognition of magnitude is seen in these instances, such as when the Cybermen arrive.
It's extraordinary. There are more ghosts than we've ever seen before, and it's happening all over the world.
They're Cybermen. All of the ghosts are Cybermen. Millions of them, right across the world.
They're invading the whole planet.
It's not an invasion, it's too late for that. It's a victory.
Or the Daleks emerge.
But I don't understand. The Cybermen don't have the technology to build a void ship. That's way beyond you. How did you create that sphere?
The sphere is not ours.
What?
We only followed. Its origin is unknown.
And what's inside it?
Rose is down there.
That's not Cybermen.
Oh my god.
Location Earth. Life forms detected. Exterminate. Exterminate.
Or simply when the Doctor tells those around him of his identity.
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord.
I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below.
No medium's introductions ever rivaled that of Doctor Who. None. Oh, well, maybe John Wick, but still. Hey, Cinema! Yeah? Whoa, what are you doing under there? Get out! What do you want? Okay, take note. Just for me, okay? Take note.